Imagine walking through an old library, the smell of aged books filling the air, when suddenly you see a figure in gray silently watching you from the stacks. This isn't fiction. It's just one of the many chilling encounters reported across Indiana. Tonight, we're visiting 10 locations where the past refuses to stay buried, where every creaking floorboard and cold spot tells a story. You'll hear firsthand accounts from those who've experienced the unexplainable, and by the end, you might just reconsider that late-night road trip through the Hoosier State. These are places where history breathes and watches. 1. Willard Library. The Gray Lady. The Willard Library in Evansville has one permanent resident who doesn't need a library card, the Gray Lady. Employees first reported seeing her in the 1930s, though the library opened in 1885. She mostly appears in the basement, walking slowly between bookshelves, or standing near the children's section. People describe her as an older woman in a gray dress with a calm expression. Visitors often notice sudden temperature drops near where she appears. Several staff members have talked about books moving by themselves, especially near the basement stairs. One librarian found an entire section rearranged overnight with no signs of forced entry. Others report seeing her reflection in windows when no one was actually there. The library set up special ghost cameras in 2002 after years of unexplained sightings. These live feeds have caught shadowy figures and strange lights. Paranormal investigators visit regularly, bringing equipment that sometimes picks up voices when no one is speaking. Many believe she's Louise Carpenter, the daughter of the library's founder. Louise was originally supposed to inherit the library, but legal issues prevented it before her death in 1918. Current staff say they've grown used to her presence. Some even consider her a protector of the building. One assistant librarian remembers hearing footsteps behind her at closing time, then turning to find empty aisles. The scent of old-fashioned rose perfume sometimes appears without explanation. While the Gray Lady never harms anyone, she makes sure visitors know she's watching. This isn't just local legend. There are over 80 years of documented sightings in library records. People from across the country write to share their own encounters with the Gray Lady. The library keeps these accounts in a special archive, along with photos and video clips. After so many reports, even skeptics admit something unusual happens in those basement stacks. 2. Central State Hospital, Abandoned Asylum. Central State Hospital in Indianapolis opened in 1848 as the Indiana Hospital for the Insane. Over the years, patients faced harsh treatments like electroshock therapy and isolation in padded cells. Records show many deaths went unexplained, with some patients simply disappearing from their rooms. The hospital closed in 1994, leaving behind empty buildings full of medical equipment and patient belongings. Today, visitors report hearing screams coming from locked wards where no one could possibly be. Security guards patrolling the grounds often hear footsteps following them through empty hallways. One guard remembers seeing shadow figures moving between windows on the third floor after dark. Another described feeling something grab his shoulder while checking a basement storage area. Paranormal investigators have recorded electronic voice phenomena throughout the complex. Some recordings capture clear responses to questions, like a whisper saying, "Help me," near the old surgical wing. Others pick up the sound of metal instruments clattering in rooms where nothing has been left behind. Thermal cameras often show cold spots moving through corridors where patients once walked. The most active area seems to be Ward 20, where violent patients were kept. People walking through there describe sudden nausea or headaches. Some feel invisible hands pushing them towards certain rooms. The air smells like antiseptic, even decades after the last patient left. While most of the buildings are now fenced off, The remaining structures still hold echoes of the suffering that happened inside. 3. Hannah House. Underground Railroad. Stop. Hannah House on Madison Avenue in Indianapolis has more than just old wood floors and antique furniture. This historic home served as a stop on the Underground Railroad in the 1850s, hiding escaped slaves in its basement. The house's darkest moment came when a lantern accidentally started a fire in that basement, trapping and killing several people seeking freedom. Many believe their spirits never left. Visitors often hear low moans coming from empty rooms, especially near the basement stairs. Some see shadowy figures moving along the walls in the upstairs bedrooms. One tour guide remembers seeing a dark shape pass through a closed door. Others report sudden cold spots in the middle of summer, particularly in the hallway leading to the back staircase. The voices are what unsettle people most. Clear whispers sometimes answer questions when no one else is around. Investigators have recorded voices saying, "Help," and "Run," near the basement entrance. One family staying overnight heard children laughing in the attic, though the house was empty. Current owners keep records of all reported encounters. They note that activity increases around the anniversary of the fire. Some paranormal researchers think the spirits remain because they never reached freedom in life. The house stands as both a historical landmark and a place where the past feels uncomfortably present. Even during daytime tours, visitors often ask to leave early after experiencing unexplained touches or hearing their names called by unseen voices. 4. Story Inn, the Blue Lady. The Story Inn in Brown County has been hosting guests since 1851, but its most famous resident never checks out. The Blue Lady, believed to be the wife of a former innkeeper, makes her presence known in subtle but unmistakable ways. Guests staying in her room often wake to find blue-colored objects moved from where they were left, a blue hairbrush sliding across a dresser, or a blue pen rolling off a nightstand. Many visitors notice the smell of cherry tobacco before anything else. The scent drifts through her room at random times, though no one inside smokes. Some hear a woman humming late at night when the inn is quiet. Others report seeing a pale figure reflected behind them in the antique mirror, only to turn and find no one there. Staff keep a log of encounters in the front desk ledger. One entry describes a guest who woke to see a blue-colored mist hovering near the ceiling. Another tells about a couple who found their blue-trimmed pillows arranged in a perfect line at the foot of the bed. The current owners say about half their guests request the Blue Lady's room specifically. Some come hoping to see her, others just curious about the stories. A few have checked out early after hearing unseen footsteps pacing their room at night. Whether she's protecting the inn or simply remembering her home, the Blue Lady remains as much a part of story as the original oak beams and stone fireplaces. Her presence gives this historic inn its extra layer of character, one that can't be found in any guidebook. 5. Culbertson Mansion, Victorian Hauntings. The Culbertson Mansion in New Albany looks like a perfectly preserved Victorian home, but visitors quickly realize the original owners never really left. Built for wealthy businessman William Culbertson in 1867, the three-story brick mansion now operates as a museum where unexplained things keep happening. Staff report hearing footsteps in empty rooms and finding doors locked from the inside when no one was there. Cold spots appear suddenly in different parts of the house, especially near the grand staircase. Tour guides mention feeling like someone walks behind them when they're alone in the halls. At least 3 visitors have reported seeing a well-dressed woman in period clothing standing in upstairs windows, always on the 3rd floor. When staff check, the rooms are empty. The most active area seems to be the master bedroom. People describe feeling watched there, with some claiming an unseen presence sits on the bed beside them. Others hear whispering near the dressing room, where William's wife Elizabeth once got ready for parties. The mansion's old servants' quarters also have activity, like the sound of silverware being arranged when no one's in the kitchen. One volunteer cataloging artifacts in the basement swears she had a full conversation with someone who answered her questions before she realized she was alone. Recordings sometimes capture voices saying, "hello," or "this way," in areas where tour groups aren't present. Staff no longer question when security alarms go off for no reason, especially near the old children's rooms. The Culbertsons built a showplace home, but whatever remains there now seems more interested in the living than the architecture. 6. Stepp Cemetery. The Crying Woman. Stepp Cemetery sits hidden in the Indiana countryside, its worn headstones surrounded by dense woods. For generations, locals have told the story of the crying woman. According to the legend, a mother lost her child near the cemetery long ago. Some versions say it was an accident. Others say something more sinister. Whatever happened, people claim you can still hear her sobbing at night. The sounds usually start after sunset, a woman's crying that seems to come from different spots in the graveyard. Visitors describe it as a raw, gut-wrenching noise that makes the hair stand up on their necks. Some hear it close to their ears. Others say it echoes between the trees. A few have reported hearing a child's voice mixed in with the sobs. People sometimes see her too, a pale figure in old-fashioned clothes moving between graves. She always appears to be searching for something. One man camping nearby swears he saw her kneeling by a particular marker before vanishing. Others notice a cold spot that moves around the cemetery, like someone unseen is walking past. The isolation adds to the creep factor. There are no streetlights out here, just moonlight filtering through the trees. The crying sounds louder when there's no other noise. Some visitors have turned around at the cemetery gate after hearing the first sob. Even skeptical locals admit to avoiding the area after dark. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, standing in Stepp Cemetery at night makes the legend feel uncomfortably real. The crying woman's story has lasted this long because enough people have heard something they can't explain. 7. Indiana State Sanatorium, Tuberculosis Hospital. The Indiana State Sanatorium in Rockville opened in 1911 as a tuberculosis hospital. At the time, there was no cure for the disease, so thousands came here hoping for treatment that often didn't work. The place grew quickly, adding wards for men, women, and children across its 504 acres. Over 4,000 people died here before antibiotics made the hospital unnecessary. Walking through the abandoned buildings now, you can still see old medical equipment left behind. Metal bed frames stand in rows where patients once lay. Some visitors report hearing coughing fits coming from empty rooms. Others see shadowy figures moving down the long hallways. The air feels heavy in certain spots, like something unseen is watching. Paranormal investigators say the nursing home section has the most activity. One team focused on room 120, where they believe a spirit named Mary remains. Recordings picked up a woman's voice saying, "Help me," when no one was there. Another investigator heard a clear response after asking if anyone needed assistance. The voice answered, "Yes," from an empty corner. The underground tunnels connecting buildings add another layer of creepiness. People hear footsteps down there when the tunnels are sealed off. Some smell antiseptic suddenly, then it disappears. The place closed as a hospital in 1968, but the energy of all that suffering seems to linger. Current owners offer tours where visitors can see the old treatment rooms and hear stories from staff about things they've witnessed after dark. The sanatorium stands as a reminder of Indiana's medical history and the lives lost before modern medicine could save them. 8. Liar's Table. Ghostly patrons. Liar's Table in Indianapolis serves up more than just food. The restaurant has ghostly customers who never left. The building started as a brothel in the late 1800s, before becoming the casual dining spot it is today. Staff and customers alike report strange happenings that suggest some former residents still linger. Waiters often hear footsteps following them in empty dining rooms after closing. One server remembers turning around to see who was behind her, only to find the chairs all pushed in and no one there. Others hear whispering near the old staircase where working girls once greeted clients. Some diners feel taps on their shoulders when sitting alone at tables. The most frequent activity happens in the back corner booth. Several people have seen a woman in old-fashioned dress sitting there, then blinking away. One couple swears their silverware rearranged itself into neat rows while they ate. Another group noticed their drinks sliding across the table with no one touching them. Current employees say they've gotten used to the odd occurrences. The manager keeps a log behind the counter where staff notes things like flickering lights and sudden cold spots. Some think the spirits are former workers who still enjoy the lively atmosphere. The restaurant embraces its haunted reputation. They even named a cocktail after the ghostly woman in the corner booth. While most restaurants worry about customer complaints, Liar's Table deals with spectral visitors who don't order anything. The mix of good food and ghost stories makes it a unique spot where history shows up unannounced. Some customers come for the burgers, but stay for the chance to see something unexplained. 9. Old Jail Museum. Violent Past. The Old Jail Museum in Crawfordsville operated as an active prison from 1882 until the 1970s. The conditions inside were brutal. Inmates faced overcrowding, beatings, and unexplained deaths. Records show several prisoners died under suspicious circumstances, their bodies sometimes found hanging in their cells. Visitors today often feel that anger and despair still linger in those cells. People report hearing screams coming from empty cell blocks. Some hear chains rattling when nothing is moving. The worst spots are the solitary confinement cells in the basement. Several tour guides refuse to go down there alone after experiencing sudden temperature drops and feeling like someone breathes down their neck. One volunteer saw a shadow move across the wall in cell 14, then realized no light source could have caused it. Paranormal investigators have recorded clear EVPs throughout the jail. Some capture voices saying, "Help me," or "Get out." One team got a response when they asked how many spirits were present. A whisper said, 7, right into their recorder. Others have documented banging sounds that seem to answer questions. The most unsettling reports come from people who spend time in the old exercise yard. Many describe seeing shadow figures pacing along the walls at night. A few have felt something shove them when no one was nearby. The jail staff keeps logbooks filled with these encounters. Even skeptics admit there's something wrong with the energy in that building. The combination of documented abuse and repeated paranormal incidents makes this one of Indiana's most convincing haunted sites. 10. Maple Hill Cemetery. Shadow Figures. Maple Hill Cemetery in New Albany has graves dating back to the early 1800s. The older sections have weathered headstones so worn you can barely read the names. People walking through often notice shadowy figures moving between the trees, especially near the oldest plots. These dark shapes don't look like people exactly, more like someone took black smoke and gave it a human form. Visitors describe sudden cold spots that appear even on warm days. Sometimes the chill follows you as you walk, like someone unseen is keeping pace. Others hear whispering when no one else is around. The voices sound like faint conversations just out of earshot. One regular visitor swears he heard his name called clearly from behind a row of graves when he was completely alone. The feeling of being watched is constant here. People turn around expecting to see someone standing behind them, but the paths stay empty. Some report seeing figures in old-fashioned clothes standing over particular graves before vanishing. Others notice strange disturbances in the grass that look like footprints with no one making them. Cemetery workers say they've seen shadows move against sunlight with no object to cast them. One groundskeeper remembers hearing footsteps crunching gravel right beside him, turning to find nothing there. The oldest section near the back fence seems most active after sundown. While the cemetery closes at dusk, those who've stayed past closing time describe an overwhelming sense that they weren't welcome to linger. Between the worn tombstones and unexplained movements, Maple Hill Cemetery makes visitors question whether the dead truly rest peacefully here. Indiana's haunted places aren't just stories. They're pieces of history that won't stay quiet. From libraries to asylums, each location holds real tragedies that shifted into something unexplained. Evelyn Ogleville, who investigated the Tuberculosis Sanatorium, put it best. "We didn't leave with all the answers, but we did leave with more questions. And sometimes that's enough." You don't have to believe in ghosts to feel something off at these spots. The cold spots, the whispers, the figures that disappear, they all add up to something we can't quite explain. Next time you're in Indiana, pay attention. History might be watching closer than you think.